In this chapter, we're going to look at a great feature in SketchUp called New Match Photo. It allows you to take an existing photograph and turn it into a SketchUp model based off of the vanishing points and the axes of a photograph. We'll walk through how to set up a new match photo, as well as import and create a china cabinet and drop it into the model. To start, we're in the dining room, and there's a china cabinet that sits basically in this diagonal corner here. We go to Finder, you can see the photograph that we took, and you'll see it's an angled photograph. For New Match Photo to work, you want to take an angle shot so that you can see all of the green axes, which is what we're going to call it, and the red axes here. I've also included 2 flat textures, as Photo Match works great for setting up the proportions of the piece of furniture. However, using the final textures, the image tends to get grainy closer to the vanishing points. In that case, we have flat-on photos that make it a lot more appealing and attractive rendering. Let's go back to SketchUp and just start a new file. Go to File, Import, and in the Working Files folder, make sure you have Format as Use as New Match Photo, and select the Photo Match Furniture JPEG. Then click Import. When you import a photograph with New Match Photo, the first thing that you need to do is set up the origin point, which is this yellow square. The origin point you always want to set to the foreground corner. This would work the same way if you're trying to use New Match Photo to set up a building, but in this case, a furniture example does the trick. The yellow line represents the horizon line, and this square here and the square over here represent the vanishing points. The green and red perspective bars help you align the vanishing points to determine where the axes locations are. Take the mouse, place it over the red square, and then click and drag and place it in the top of the front of this cabinet. The trick with the perspective bars is that you want them to be lined up with each other so that they're parallel. So we know that this location here is parallel to this location here. We can click and drag the green axes, perspective bars, and place them along the side here. You can zoom in if you need to get a little bit more precise. The last thing you want to make sure is that the blue axis is right on that edge or that corner. And in this case, it's not. So we can fudge the perspective bars just a little bit just to make sure they align. That looks a lot better. Once you're done, just right-click and select Done. You'll notice it also creates a scene. If you orbit, you'll lose the image, but you can always click back on the scene to realign the axes. Let's move on to the next video where we'll create the massing for the cabinet. To mask the photograph, you want to begin with the line tool, and you want to start at the origin point. Anytime you're using New Match Photo, you always want to begin at the origin point since that's the only reference point to the model. We're going to click once and draw along the red axes, approximately where we hit the end point here. Go up in the blue axes. And this is really just a guessing game. We're just trying to get it close, just to get the proportions of the geometry correct. If we orbit, we'll notice all we've done is just create a face that's proportional to the photograph. You can click back on the photo matched furniture scene. Next, take the push-pull and push-pull the surface back until we have the thickness. And again, this is just an approximation. Now the fun part. Right-click on the front surface here and select Project Photo. Do the same thing with the front texture by right-clicking and projecting the photo. Now when we go ahead and orbit, not only is the model proportional, but it actually projects those textures from the photograph onto the object. Now the model doesn't have a scale, but we did take a measurement of this. So take the tape measure tool, make sure the Control or Option key is turned off so that the plus sign's not on, and measure the width of the cabinet. Now it certainly shouldn't be 10 feet 11 5/16 of an inch. We're going to type in the new value, which it should be 38 inches. When we press Enter, SketchUp asks us if we want to resize the model. Just click Yes, and it'll scale the model proportional to this measurement being 38 inches. So you'll see that the width is approximately 14 inches. And that's pretty close to the final measurements of this actual piece of furniture. Notice now that the texture is really slanted and it gets pixelated the closer you are to the vanishing point. So it's clearer here at the corner and more grainy over here. In the next video, let's apply a new texture to clean up this model. Since the textures applied from the new match photo tend to look pretty grainy, let's go ahead and apply some new textures. First though, take the line tool, draw a line right here to separate the bottom base from the top glass panels here. Next, go to File, Import, select the base texture, and make sure you have Use as Texture and not Use as New Match Photo. Then click Import, and start in the bottom left-hand corner as usual. Click once to start your import. Hold down Shift since the texture is not uniform, and click to set it there. Next, apply the top cabinet texture the same way that we apply the bottom cabinet texture. Hold down Shift. The last texture that we want to apply is a side texture. Now this side texture here looks pretty good. What we can do is take the paint bucket and sample it with the Command key to bring up the eyedropper. And then we can simply just apply that to the other side. Since Photo Match is projecting this texture, it'll keep it aligned for the other side. This model still looks pretty flat, so let's go ahead and add some detail. To add detail to the furniture geometry, let's start with the top here. First, push-pull the top cabinet in 1 inch. Next, let's offset the top face 1/2 inch. And let's push-pull that face down 3/4 of an inch. Here, we can take the paint bucket tool, hold down Command, and sample the side texture, sample the front texture, and apply. And then sample the side texture and apply. You can also sample the side and apply it underneath. We can apply a top texture as well, but notice when we apply this texture onto the top, it really off-skews it. Right-click on this side texture and make this a unique texture, and then sample it and apply it. For the drawers, draw a rectangle around one of the drawers. And we'll take the arc tool and draw an arc from side to side out. Let's take that arc, use the Move Copy, copy that in the red direction, and then rotate that along the green axis 180 degrees, and then move that until it hits the edge. Next, double-click to select the front face of the drawer and make it a component. Make sure you checked Replace Selection with Component and click Create. Double-click on that front face and just push-pull this out. Saving this component and importing it into the model is pretty straightforward. We first just need to do a file save as, and we're going to save it into that SketchUp library that we set earlier, which was on our desktop in the SketchUp Models folder. Let's name this China Cabinet. Let's go back into our SketchUp model and go to Window Components and go down to our SketchUp Models folder, and we can see that our China Cabinet's there. Now, if you don't see it, you may need to re-click on this icon here and select Refresh. Now just click on the icon, bring it into the model. It may take a second or two to load the model. And now just set the model in place. So we'll just move a little bit. Rotate this 45 degrees, and then we'll just move it over slightly. That wraps it up for creating components from New Match Photo. New Match Photo works in other ways as well. You can reference an indoor photograph, or you can even mass up an exterior building. There's a lot of great resources online as well for using New Match Photo, and creating furniture is just one of the simple uses of New Match Photo. Let's move on to the next chapter, where we'll move outside and create the exterior front as well as the roof.